North Dakota State kicked off 2019 in style.
Trey Lance down the sideline, 61 yards, touchdown.
The number 1 team in the country debuted their new quarterback, and he shined on the big stage at Target Field.
Lance is going to air it out, one-on-one coverage to the end zone. Caught! What a catch! Touchdown, Phoenix Pros!
Now, the Bison return to the Fargo Dome, putting the final touch on last year's national championship. And they welcome in an old foe. 111 times NDSU and UND have met on the football field. The last time was the first time in over a decade, and the Bison secured a commanding win. This time, it's the final game as non-conference opponents for the in-state teams, and the rivalry might be renewed again. It's the Bison and the Fighting Hawks, and it starts now.
This is the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show.
Hello and welcome out to the Fargo Dome as we are getting you set for Bison football taking on North Dakota today. The rivalry again renewed. Beth Houle, the Buck Buchanan Award winner, Kyle Emanuel. I am Alex Egan alongside. We'll be with you for the next 90 minutes as we get set for football, the home opener here at the Fargo Dome.
Are we just going to pick a different one of his accolades every week?
It's enough that you can call him, yes.
There's not that many, guys. Come on. But thank you. You're flattering me.
I don't know. Yeah, we're trying to get you blushing a little bit here before we get started.
Work.
A huge addition to the pregame show this year, having Kyle Emanuel on board, but also moving it out here to the Fargo Dome as well. All of our home games will be going live from the Fargo Dome. Fun to get back out here. This is going to be your first time back at the Dome since you played here.
Beth, I'm really excited. It's my first game, first banner raise I'm actually going to get to see because even as a player you don't get to see many of those. It's going to be electric. And to top it all off, it's against UND. So, I mean, it could have been against Butler, but it's against what I think, and which we'll get into later, is an old rival. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, let's talk about that Butler game because that was something else. At Target Field, obviously with 34,000 plus Bison fans filling the Twins Stadium, that was something special, and it was actually really cool. The Twins gave NDSU something to commemorate that. They gave one to Butler as well, and they gave him this commemorative bat for playing there. And honestly, the bat is all great and dandy, but the real star of the Butler game was Trey Lance, making his debut for quarterback for NDSU.
Yeah, he was fun to watch. It was just fun to get to see Trey in action. We got a little bit of an inkling of a sampling last year in those 4 games that he got to play in because of the redshirt rule, but really cool to see him just let it fly and run all over the field.
Yeah, he's going to be a guy we're talking about for a long time, but I mean, he was so hyped, and we talked about him a lot before the season. You talked about him last year, just seeing him even when Easton was still around. And for him to come out to perform like that, now trust me, I know he had a lot of help. Yeah. The offensive line I thought played outstanding, but still, for him to come into an environment like that and play like that, you got to be happy seeing that from him.
Well, and it garnered quite a bit of attention as well. Actually ending up on the Heisman watch list after that first week. ESPN releasing their Heisman watch list. You can see it there. He's number 10 on there. Now, this is a long shot this year, but to be on that list means he's already getting the attention.
I don't want to rain on anybody's parade, but you look at the names that are on that list. Trey Lance, who plays at North Dakota State, probably not going to get an invite to New York for the Heisman.
But North Dakota State is changing that conversation.
That's
and
true.
It's people like you, Kyle. Again, we're going to really give you some praise here, but it's people like you, guys getting drafted, playing an impact in the NFL, and those guys that have come after you that have really been able to kind of put this on the map. 5 years ago, an NDSU quarterback, let alone a freshman NDSU quarterback, ending up on the Heisman watch list, it would have never. People were laughing when Bison fans were saying it on Saturday. And then, lo and behold, there he ends up Monday night.
Yeah, it's cool, and it's something that's worth talking about, but let's be honest, he's not going to win the thing. I love Trey, and I love this team, obviously, but he's not going to win the thing. But just for, like you said, the fact that he's on the list is kind of cool. Now, I don't know who wrote this. It's ESPN.
It's ESPN writers.
And I don't know exactly how many of them are looking at this. Maybe they just saw a stat line and like, hey, we need to throw someone in at number 10. But regardless, it doesn't matter. It's still cool. I mean, it's the Heisman. No one from North Dakota State is probably going to win it, but it doesn't matter. It's still cool that we're even talking about about it.
At least maybe not this year. Maybe in years to come. Yeah, so you see the Heisman watch list. Obviously, Jalen Hurts at Oklahoma. He gets to play South Dakota today, Jalen Hurts does. That'll be an interesting one. Let's go down to the rest of our crew, the guys that will be on the call, and we'll get their thoughts on what they saw last week at Target Field with Trey Lance and the Bison. Guys?
All right, thanks so much, Brian. Sean, Lee Timmerman here with you as kickoff is just under 90 minutes away from here at the Fargo Dome. And LT, Trey Lance certainly did stick out his performance in his starting debut. We saw last year in spurts what this guy was capable of, and then, boy, when he put it all out there on the field in his first career start, it was fun to watch.
He was impressive, but I think Kyle hit on a good thing. A clean quarterback is usually a very good quarterback. He didn't have to worry about moving his feet. He didn't even have to worry about checking too many fields, even though one of his tight ends that he hit for a touchdown was a look left and then come back to the right. So that's the one thing I think that UND wants to try and do today is see what they can do if they can get him a little bit uncomfortable. That'll be one of the big things, I think. But Trey Lance in his comfort zone, we know how athletic he is, and he certainly displayed that. One of the neat things about the decisions that Lance made, the 61-yard touchdown run, that was a check he made at the line into that particular running play that opened it up, so the coaches were happy with his decision-making as well.
And you talk about the decision-making, the checks at the line. Tyler Roll said, we just keep telling him every time he comes up to the line, check to what you think is right, and we're going to run it at 200 miles an hour, whether it's right or wrong, just trust it. And I think that's something that the offense is also giving him confidence as well when he gets up to the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, he meaning Tyler Roll, is telling his quarterback, if you check to it, we will believe you. 99% of the time, whether you're right or wrong, you're right. Your team will follow you. If you see it, we will do it. So that's part of the building process as well. And your quarterback has to be that type of a leader. And we've seen, just the guys before him, what the Bison have had in that quarterback department. They're good ones.
They talked about the buzz with the watch list for the Heisman. I think we're all realistic here on planet Earth that his odds of winning it are somewhere between slim and zero.
Yep.
But at the same time, it's interesting to see the next quarterback at North Dakota State garner this kind of attention, mainly maybe because of what the previous two quarterbacks have done here. Easton Stick and Carson Wentz have both gone on to the NFL.
Well, after a performance like that from Trey Lance, and you're going to use his name and throw it out there, but what I think it speaks of a lot as well is that ESPN knows how to market itself.
Yeah.
And if you threw some running back from USC in the number 10 spot, everybody's going to be like, nah. But you throw the top FBS program who's won all the national championships and won those championships on ESPN, and the Bison have become really a national marketing tool, so to speak, for ESPN a little bit. They know how to play the game.
Yeah, clearly do. It was fun to watch. We'll see how he does today against that 3-4 North Dakota defense. Back up to you guys.
Thanks so much, guys. All right, one of the big things we talk about in the college football scene, especially the media, we really like to harp on this a little bit. It's that progression from week 1 to week 2, and we hear so often from the coaching staffs that this is where they're really looking for that biggest improvement. What's it like at this part, transitioning from week 1 to week 2? I know you've got less time to prepare. You had some of fall camp for that first opponent. Is this a really big part of the season, a big pressure week for everybody?
Yeah, I think when people talk about all the improvements from week 1 to week 2, it's because you can finally go and see where you need to get better. You can simulate all you want in practices and scrimmages and all that throughout the entire training camp, but until you actually play a game, you as coaches, you even as players, you can't really sit there and say, well, what are we doing well? What do we need to improve on? I think that's why everyone talks about the improvements from week 1 to week 2.
And how difficult is it to go up against maybe a team that you should beat in week 1, and then you face a little bit tougher competition in week 2?
Yeah, well, the thing is at NDSU, and they preach this there, and it was instilled in me when I was there, is being consistent. It doesn't matter who you're playing, and I hope I know that's what they're doing here with Coach Matt Entz and going from one week to the other. They're talking down this rivalry. They're going to be consistent in their preparation.
Yeah, it should be.
Takes away a little bit of the pressure then of it, just because that's how you prepare every week. Exactly.
And if you're up one week and down the other and you're not consistent, it makes things difficult, and that's where you see losses, and that's not what NDSU is doing, and that's why you've seen such success over these last 8 years.
Well, it is nice and dry here in the Fargo Dome because I love indoor football, but outside here in the Fargo area, it was raining this morning.
It feels like football.
Yeah, and the tailgaters, they were out there in full force, rain or shine, as they always are here at the Fargo Dome, and that is where we find Mike Morgan, who caught up with some of those diehards with this tailgate trivia. Mike?
All right, thank you so much. Rain, what rain, right? No problems at all when you got a tent and solo cups, right? So here we go. I've got 2 contestants for tailgate trivia. We are playing for $50 gift cards to Big Irv's, either in Horace or at Rose Creek. Our thanks to Big Irv's for being our sponsor. And let's go, ladies, first. Your name?
Kristen Roars.
Kristen, we have never had anyone get this wrong. So,
Oh, Lord.
ready? And you can ask the crowd to help you out. Are you ready? When it comes to home opening wins in a row, NDSU has the second longest streak among FCS programs. How many? Is it 20 or 18? Do you need help?
20.
You know it.
It's 20.
Confident.
Absolutely.
That's confidence well spoken because it is 20. Congratulations. Did everybody know that? Yep. Yes, of course. Here you are. It's a $50 gift card to Big
Do I
Irv's.
get his if he gets it wrong?
No. Wow. Here we go. UND, who let you in?
Everybody.
Everybody. Our contestant, however, is?
Casey Bartholomew.
Casey. Did you see how easy that was?
I did.
Here we go. How many national championships have the NDSU Bison won? Is it 15 or 13? 15 or 13?
15.
15? It is 15. Very good. There you go. Just easy enough. That's how easy it is. Congratulations to our winners. Nobody has any problems with our questions, and we'll be back again with more in just a few minutes.
There they are. The Fighting Hawks making their way into the Fargo Dome. Head coach Bubba Schweigert and the rest of his team leading here into the Fargo Dome. 1-0 the Fighting Hawks enter after they beat a Pioneer football team as well last week, beating Drake in their home opener 47-7. The Bison also seeing a team from that league as well, beating Butler last week.
Get your blood pumping, seeing those guys walk in here.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
I said I know I haven't played them, but I mean, there's something about
somebody
UND.
coming in to play the Bison,
Yeah, it's like,
especially
this
in
is our
in-state.
place.
Yeah, you feel
This is
that
our
pulse.
dome. Oh yeah, I always feel that.
Well, let's learn a little bit more about the Fighting Hawks. Ryan Gellner caught up with the voice of the Fighting Hawks, Jack Michaels.
Yeah, thank you guys. And it's pretty interesting that only 3 people in the history of North Dakota State and UND have called games for both teams. This is one of them. You've got Scott Miller. You've got Ed Schultz. This is Jack Michaels. Pretty unique spot to be in.
I couldn't help it, Ryan, going to the Dome today, thinking about Scott Miller, our dear friend and colleague, and Ed Schultz. Both have left this earth too soon. And I'm thinking, boy, this is odd. I'm the 3rd guy that has called both North Dakota State and University of North Dakota. Thinking about them today and looking forward to a great game.
Let's get into UND. Their offense is different from at least the last time North Dakota State saw them. Last time it was try to run it at you. This time it's quicker, it's faster, it's get to the ball, it's up tempo. Kind of fun to watch.
I think that was by design. They wanted to give Danny Freund the keys to this car, and Danny Freund said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to get the ball in the hands of the playmakers. We're going to find guys on the edge. We're going to find guys underneath. We have a good receiving core. You still want to run the football downhill, James Johannesson, but they want to get that ball in the hands of Cam McKinney in space. They want to find Wanzik and Toivonen. It really is built a little bit more up-tempo. Now, we've seen it for a week, and it certainly looked good against Drake. Today's a different test, but you will see a different up-tempo North Dakota team.
On defense against Drake, the Hawks were able to start with 3 and bring 3 a majority of the game, but they were able to get to the quarterback. Talk about this UND defense.
Yeah, the defense has been solid. Standard 3-4. Now, they'll probably show Bison quarterback Trey Lance some pressures to make some pre-snap reads today, but when you look at Mason Bennett, pride of Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, he's really having a nice career at North Dakota. Those those inside linebackers, when you look at Noel Larson and Donnell Rogers, they can stuff holes. And, you know, the UND got a pick last week. Jordan Kennedy, a good safety. But you'll see that 3-4, the Jalens. You'll see the Jalens up front, and Mason Bennett and Eric Schmidt. He's a defensive mind working for a defensive-minded head coach. That is still the staple of North Dakota football.
For the fans, the in-state rivalry is certainly back. Jack, I appreciate it. Have a great call up there.
Great to see you, Ryan. You always look like $1 million. Have a good call.
Boy, I wish you could say that again. Back to you guys.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Whoa, whoa.
I think our compliments are in the mail from Jack. That's what that is.
Yeah.
As you heard the guys talk about the quarterback situation for UND, obviously they lose Nate Ketteringham, who had been their guy for the last 20 starts. He goes down with an injury early in the second half of that game against Drake, and then they bring in Andrew Zimmerman.
Steps right up. He steps right up. I mean, he's an experienced guy. He's been chomping at the bit to get this opportunity, and he was actually voted a captain by his teammates, which really says a lot about the kind of guy he is, even as a backup.
Yeah, I think that's huge, and it's kind of one of those things that Carson Wentz was the same way. He never even, well, he wasn't a backup, but he had never played a game, and he was voted captain. We all know what kind of guy and what kind of player Carson was. So shows you what UND thinks of this guy. He, like you said, you alluded to it, Beth. He had a really good game last week, throwing 2 touchdowns, 7 for 9, 132 yards. He's an experienced guy, but this is a different kind of atmosphere. This isn't exactly playing Drake at home. I think the experience will help him, but it'll be interesting to see how disrupted he gets.
Do you just chomp at the bit when there's somebody coming into the Fargo Dome for the very first time?
You have to, and I think even more than the quarterback is the offensive line is how can they get off the ball? Can Derek Tuska and company get to this quarterback and kind of rattle him even more? I think it'll be interesting to see what he can do with his eyes. Can he move the DBs around and we'll see what kind of game he can have.
Well, I mean, we've heard time and time again, post-game press conferences with opposing coaches talking about the fact that they prepared for this sound. They put their speakers up as loud as they possibly could, and it still didn't prepare them for this.
It's funny you would mention that because I talked to Bubba Schweigert at his Monday press conference about preparing for it because none of the guys on this team have played in the Fargo Dome. None of the guys on this UND team have played in the Fargo Dome. So it was very interesting how he said, yes, we're going to have the noise up. They closed practice this week, but they're going to have the noise up and prepare for it. And I said, okay, but you know what the Dome is like. You were here in 2015. Will that help? And he goes, I can only tell them so much.
Yeah, coach can only do so much in a situation like this. And I found it very interesting this week that they announced that Zimmerman was going to be the quarterback on, what I think it was Thursday. So a little bit of time ahead. I was really expecting that gamesmanship factor. I thought they were going to keep it down to the wire, maybe even put out that Ketteringham was looking good, kind of play that mind game a little bit. And I'm shocked they didn't. I know you don't really care so much about what's happening on the offensive side of the ball for your team, but does it matter? Does it help everybody know who the guy's going to be?
I think it depends. I think these two quarterbacks are similar enough where it wouldn't change a whole lot NDSU is trying to do on defense. Now there are situations, and we're in it in college and in the NFL. You got a completely running quarterback, a guy who can't really throw very much, or vice versa. You got a pocket quarterback. That might change what you're trying to do defensively, but I think these two quarterbacks are at least similar enough where NDSU is not going to make a huge deal about knowing who is going to start ahead of time.
And from everything that I've heard, Zimmerman throws probably a better ball than Nate Ketteringham does. So it's going to be on those defensive backs and the guys up front to make sure that he doesn't have the time to throw him. We also heard that maybe there might be some tricks up the sleeve with Danny Freund, that up-tempo offense. That's another thing that this Bison defense is going to have to prepare for.
That's a former UND player. You talk about people who this rivalry means something to.
Played in games like this,
He played in this kind of stuff.
And why not throw it out there?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? They have nothing to lose, at least in the eyes of a lot of people, they have nothing to lose.
They have a ton to gain. They're trying to earn themselves a playoff spot, and it's going to be way harder this year than in years past because they don't have that conference affiliation. So a win against the Bison, honestly, even hanging with them, they need that.
A very good point. We'll get into that discussion a little bit later on as well because this UND schedule is not fun at all for these Fighting Hawks. We have plenty more pregame show to come. We are just getting started. We will be with you right up till kickoff, and then, of course, we'll have the game right here on the KBLY KFYR Bison Football Network.
Welcome back to the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show. We're going to get right back into the action, tossing it down to Ryan Gellner for this week's Stanford Orthopedic Sports Medicine Injury Report.
Hi guys, we have caught up with the Dr. Bruce Pyatt. And Bruce, as technology changes and as we continue to make a focus beyond player safety and player health, North Dakota State has come up with something new or implemented something new that they've started this year.
Yeah, I mean, we're always looking for new ideas and new ways to prevent major catastrophic injuries, and probably the hot button right now is concussions. And so anything we can do that reduces that risk to the athlete, we're going to try.
North Dakota State at the beginning of practice this season started with this Guardian Guard helmet. And as you can see, it's just very simply a guard that fits over top of the helmet and protects the helmet, and therefore, Doc, it protects the player as well.
Yeah, so the whole idea is trying to reduce the amount of impact that the athletes are seeing. There is some studies out there that suggest that this Guardian cap can reduce the linear impact or the direct impact that occurs by about 33%, which, if that's true, you would think that will translate to less concussions. Now, we don't have great studies to support that that's happening yet, but from our standpoint, if there's any chance that it's going to benefit the athlete, we might as well do it, as long as it's not putting the athlete at risk, and there does not appear to be any risk in using it.
Concussions are still a very real thing for high school athletes, college athletes, and this is only part of trying to prevent those concussions. There's a lot of things going on, both behind the scenes and things that you can see right up front.
Yeah, there's everything we do, we're thinking about that pretty much with these athletes. And probably the biggest thing we can do is cut down the number of times that they take impact. So you'll see practices nowadays are not what they were 20 years ago. 20 years ago, they were hitting twice a day and full go, as much impact as they could take. And, nowadays we try to avoid those things unless we absolutely have to do it. And that's probably the biggest thing. It's going to cut down the risk of concussions.
Appreciate your time again this week.
Yeah, always happy to do it. So,
guys, back to you.
Thanks so much, Gellner. Thank you so much, Dr. Pyatt. Taking a look here at this week's Sanford Orthopedic Sports Medicine injury report, just a couple of guys expected out in this game. Injuries sustained last week against Butler at Target Field. Jasir Cox out with a knee. Jake Reinholds injuring his quad, expecting him to be out as well. Some good news for the Bison, though, expecting Ben Ellefson back in the lineup, as well as Spencer Wagee this week. Now let's toss it back down to the field with Ryan Gellner and the guys to learn a little bit more about Bison football.
Yeah, Beth, you know what? With Kyle Emanuel, the four-time national champion, the ex-NFL football player, we decided we'd try to show you a little something. And when we dove into UND's game tape from a week ago, we noticed they don't bring a ton of pressure. They do a lot of things up front with their three-down linemen where they're trying to get to the quarterback. They use something called a lot of different twists.
Yeah.
Take us through that.
Yeah, Reiner. A lot of teams do these twists, and we're going to show you three really quick, and they're kind of common. Almost every team around the country is going to do it, so we're going to try and do this here.
Alex is going to be our offensive lineman. Ryan, you're going to be my defensive end, all right?
Okay.
So he's going to, Alex, we spread out a little bit. All right, so quarterback's over here. Pretty simple. On set, go, my DN's going to try and get it upfield. As a three technique, I'm getting off the ball as quick as I can. I'm trying to avoid the guard, and I'm trying to pick this hip right here. You're going to, Ryan,
as you do that,
defensive end, he's going to come around here. Now, usually this guy, the guy picking, is the one that comes free because the tackle doesn't see it. All right, now, watch cord. We're moving here. Now you're going to be
I'll start on this side. I'm going as the guard here.
Now, you're the defensive lineman. Alex is my guard here. Now, me as a defensive end, I'm going to get off the ball, set hit. I'm going to sell it upfield on the tackle. Now I'm going to come down and I'm going to pick kind of the same thing, just
and I'm rubbing
way,
shoulders.
And I'm going to try and deflect again, and I'm trying to get to the quarterback. All right, last one. This one's very similar. Now Alex is going to be our center. You're going to be on this side of the center. I'm going to be on this side. We're going to read the center here now. All right, he's going to turn one way or the other.
He's got to make a decision on us too.
Exactly. Set, hit. He turns towards you. Now I'm picking for you. You're coming around, and once again, I'm deflecting, and I'm trying to get to the quarterback. Look for this today. Almost every team around the country does it. You'll see NDSU and you'll see UND doing it, trying to get to Trey Lance. Stay with us. More Bison Football pregame show coming up next.
This is the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show.
Welcome back out to the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show. Now, there's been plenty of talk all week from the coaches and both the teams alike that this doesn't necessarily feel like the heated rivalry that fans remember from years past. But this is a huge game for two Fargo South alums facing off for the first time ever. Best friends for life, Ty Brooks said, but just not this week. Alex Egan has that story.
The 121st meeting between North Dakota State and North Dakota on the football field will mark the first time former teammates at Fargo South will be on opposing sidelines. Running backs Ty Brooks and James Johannesson used to terrorize defenses as a backfield duo for Fargo South.
It was great to have him. You know, we were sort of in high school the 1-2 punch, so like he's a great competitor.
They each went their separate ways when it came to college. Brooks signing with NDSU and Johannesson signing with Minnesota.
I was happy for him then. I'm happy for him now. The way he went and the way I went.
Johannesson then reopened his recruitment and eventually transferred to UND.
I told him to come to NDSU. I wanted him to be here. Obviously, he's my best friend. I wanted him to come here, but he chose to go up to UND. Happy for him there. And now we get to play each other.
The two remain close, exchanging text messages before they take the field each week.
Roman Brooks, past everybody, Ty Brooks, touchdown!
This week, they won't see each other on the field. Since both are on offense, they won't get a chance to go up against one another. So they won't get the chance to talk on game day. And actually, they won't talk at all this week leading up to the game.
I told him don't text me so after we get done playing, but yeah, it'll be fun to get back on the same field as him.
This week we might not be talking, but we'll be friends on Sunday.
There you go. Yeah, friends on Sunday, they said. Ty was very adamant. Don't text me. Do not text me, James. I know we're best friends, but
Ty Brooks, having an opinion and sharing it.
Shocker,
Love
right?
Ty Brooks. Him and James Johannesson, though, were really good. Best friends. You said it. They're best friends. They've been best friends. We're each other number 1 and 2 right there all through high school at Fargo South. Do you ever play against a teammate, a former teammate? What's that like? Is it fun or?
Yeah, it's almost like a little rivalry between friends type of thing. And I know exactly what they're talking about because it's almost, you don't really want to I remember we played Carson my 3rd year, and it was one of those things. He texted me early, I texted him back, and then we didn't really talk after that. I obviously got to play against Billy Turner, and he even tackled me. And it's one of those things that you definitely do not want to happen because now I hear about it all the time. So they're going to want to best each other today, I promise you.
Billy tackled you? Did he not get flagged on the play? That seems illegal.
I was already in the end zone. I had the ball. It was a fumble recovery. You guys probably remember that.
Bury the lead there, Kyle Emanuel. Bury the lead, yeah. So obviously this week is a lot of fun for a lot of people. I guess fun is a different word you could use. Could be a little mean between a lot of people, but it is a lot of fun for a lot of people. And we didn't get this for a while. This series had gone away when NDSU had made the transition to Division I, and UND was right behind them in making that transition, but they didn't play.
Yeah, we were all introduced to it in 2015.
Yeah,
Us, you know, I hadn't been through a UND football game, and you never had the opportunity to either.
No, I haven't, but to me, it's one of those things that everyone talks about the rivalry, and is this a rivalry, is it not? To me, it is, and it always will be, regardless of records, regardless of what happens on the field. It's because of the proximity of the schools, how much hate there is, and as players, you know how much this means to former guys. I mean, you might not have played them. I never played them, but I know how much it meant to the guys in the 80s, the 90s. I know there was a stretch they won 12 in a row.
Yeah.
It's a rivalry, and it's going to get bigger. It will. It might not be there yet, but it's going to happen.
And that says it alone. You know about the streaks.
Yeah, exactly.
You weren't even preparing to play UND ever, and you still know about those streaks. And this one certainly helped. In 2015, NDSU laid down the hammer.
Yeah, well, that was one of those games that could have been a lot worse than it was.
Probably could have been. It was 3-3 at the end of the first quarter, and then it became the Carson Wentz show. He threw 4 touchdowns in that game. You saw one of them there to Chase Morlock on the infamous wheel route that we always saw out of that offense from Carson Wentz. That's not fun to prepare for, that wheel route combination. We've heard many a defensive coordinator lose sleep over seeing that.
But I think that was really important, that dominant win in 2015. It was important to set the tone and I think to make NDSU fans a little bit more okay with the future of this rivalry. They're not okay being second fiddle.
No, and that was one of those games where I don't think NDSU just wanted to win, and maybe it's just me as an alumni.
No, I think you were right.
They didn't want to just win. They wanted to dominate, and they did, and I wanted the score to be even worse, but hey, we'll take a win for sure.
This should tell you how much they cared about that game. NDSU wore the gold jerseys. They only break those out for the big games, the Harvest Game, National Championships. Right. When it's a gold jersey game, you know it's a big game, and those players thought it was a big enough game to wear gold jerseys that week.
No gold jerseys today.
No gold jerseys today, no.
I don't think they need them.
I think they are downplaying it a little bit, and that's fine, because like I just talked about in the last segment, you want to be consistent, and whether it's Butler, UND, South Dakota State, you want to be consistent. These guys don't necessarily think it's a rivalry because they haven't been on the field with them.
What do you think it takes? What's it take to make this a rivalry? Will it just be time?
I think time, and I think, we talked about it earlier, but an incident, something like that to have. You had the UNI punch,
Yeah.
you had the Levon Perry knee taken out against South Dakota State, something like that, and hopefully it's not an injury. We don't want that to happen to anyone. But I think an incident, or if UND starts, if they become nationally prominent, they start, making playoffs, they start winning, when they get into the Missouri Valley, becoming competitive in that. I think that
a little bit more fear of a loss in this. I think NDSU fans, and I think everyone would agree, are pretty confident coming into this week.
Yeah, because right now it's like it's UND Super Bowl and it's NDSU's game. You just don't want to lose because you don't want to hear chirping. So to me, is that a rivalry? Kind of.
And you know there'd be chirping.
Exactly. So it's like it is a rivalry, but when it's a rivalry, it should be like we won this year. It might not happen next year. Not like, oh, we shocked you this year. It's one of those things where it's going to continue to get better though.
Probably the easiest way to look at that is South Dakota came in here and beat the Bison in the Dome.
Right.
That game did not create a rivalry.
No.
That was just a one-off deal.
Yep.
But that could happen. If that happens over time, especially now that UND is going to join the Missouri Valley Football Conference next year, they get to see each other a little bit more.
I just love that.
No.
Not a
Care about
rivalry.
the Coyotes.
No.
Don't care about
you don't
the
like
Coyotes.
anyone in the Missouri
Okay, so
Valley.
here's my question though. So does this kind of upset alumni when you hear that it's not a rivalry? Like if they were to say, we don't really care about the Jackrabbits, we've always beaten them, it's just another game. Would that like burn inside you a little bit? Or as an alum, do you understand the football talk? Do you understand what they're just telling the media?
Yeah, I understand it. I understand where they're coming from, and it's not going to ever like upset me that they don't consider a rivalry if they don't. Again, I never played against UND. To me, and I think I can speak for a lot of guys. As long as they go out there and win, we don't really care what they say about it. The rivalry talk's more for us to talk about, right?
Yeah.
For fans, for alumni to chirp, to go back and forth. The players don't need to concern themselves with that.
Be a lot more talk probably a little bit later tonight outside
And
of the
Sunday.
Fargo Dome. It's
Probably.
Sunday and then the
Sunday.
week after, and then until they see each other again in 2020.
Yep.
Whoever gets the better upper hand is probably going to
That's
have
why you have to win.
a little bit of
otherwise
things
you got to hear it for a year.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to step aside. When we come back, we'll hear from UND head coach Bubba Schweigert as the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show rolls on.
All right, we're back out here in the tailgate section in what has to be one of the largest crowds we've had for a segment of tailgate trivia. Let's start out with a cheer. Come on, let's do that. Okay. All right, here we go. We got two contestants, and we're going to start out with you, sir. Your name?
Troy.
Troy. We are playing for two $50 gift cards. If you win, you get one from Big Irv's. That's either out at Rose Creek or Horace. So that's how it sounds good, doesn't it?
That'll be all right.
All you have to do is answer the question correctly. Here is your question. UND versus NDSU is the 10th most played series among current FCS programs. What number meeting is today's game? Is it 112 or 104? You can ask the crowd if you're not sure.
112.
Is he correct, crowd? He is correct. That's very good. 112. It dates back to 1894. Pretty impressive. And also, so that's impressive, too, a $50 gift card. There you go. Very good, Troy, very good. And our next contestant?
Tondi.
Tondi. It's the T's today. Carson Schoenig is a junior from Rolla, North Dakota. He plays center. He stands 6 feet 5 inches tall. He weighs in at 303 pounds. What number does he wear? Is it 59 or 68?
68.
68. What was the other answer? 59. Let's do this again. 59 or 68?
59.
59 is correct. That's very good. Do not listen to him ever again. Here is your gift card. 68 is worn, by the way, by senior offensive tackle Zach Johnson from Blaine, Minnesota. So congratulations to you. Congratulations to you, and congratulations to everybody out here in the rain. Back to the Fargo Dome.
Leave it to Mike from Rolla, North Dakota to get a question in about
You
a guy
have
from
to.
Rolla, North Dakota.
I always mention the Chicago kids.
Yeah. anybody is from there. Yep.
And I'm always going to mention the Nebraska kids when they're
Absolutely.
here.
Pride.
Got to, of course.
You gotta be true to your school. That's what it is. True to your school, as the Beach Boys said. That's a reference that I'm not sure anybody's gonna get. All right, let's move on. Let's move on.
Who are you?
I've lost my train of thought.
All right, well, I'll pick it up for you.
We got Ryan Gellner standing by. We'll get this show back on track. Ryan Gellner standing by with UND head coach Bubba Schweigert. Ryan?
Yeah, thank you, guys. Bubba, you've been through this rivalry before, whatever you want to call it. North Dakota State, North Dakota. It's important on the football field. It's important for the state as well.
Well, yeah, I think it's a big game for both institutions, and that has been the history of it. Now it's a little bit different because we missed a generation here that not playing year after year, but, the people that have experienced it before, I think are experiencing that build up this week, and the game day is something a little bit different for them. But the guys actually playing in the game right now haven't experienced this.
On the field, you guys, from the last time you were here, have gone up-tempo, have gone quick, and a lot of that, you like to get the ball to a guy many fans know, Noah Wanzik.
Yeah, we think Noah's a really good football player, and he's got a lot of talent and a really good competitor. So, we got to find ways to get him the ball, and he's going to work hard to get home, but we also got to spread it out and make us better and tougher to defend, So just focusing on one guy, we can't do that today either. We'll have to spread it around a bit, but obviously Noah's going to have to make some plays for us.
Andrew Zimmerman gets the start at quarterback. Tell us about him.
Well, we're really proud of him. He was ready last week when called upon, and he's worked hard throughout his time at North Dakota. He transferred in, and he's been a great teammate through this whole process. And, he's a senior, so he's a seasoned veteran, and we expect him to play well today. He's worked very hard to prepare, and this will be a real test for our football team, and we're going to support Andrew.
Defensively, Mason Bennett, Jalen Johnson really bring it. You expect, I would assume, more from them today.
Well, we're going to have to figure out a way to stop the run and then get some pressure on the quarterback. That's always a recipe for success on defense, and those two guys are key for us.
Bubba, we appreciate the time. Best of luck to your team, and enjoy the atmosphere.
All right, thank you very much.
Guys, back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Ryan, and thank you to Coach Schweigert for taking some time. Now, we kind of talked about this a little bit in the last segment, but
I really wanted to bring this up.
Yes.
I think this is a huge opportunity game for UND, and that can't be ignored. They can come in and their fans can talk about it, and the team can talk about this being, a game that they can play in and all of that. But the truth is this is NDSU's tenure right now. It's their dynasty, and they're still running with it. And so if UND cannot just win this game, if they can even hang with the Bison in this one, that's a win for them.
So UND's schedule coming up, they have number 1 North Dakota State. Then they play Sam Houston State, who's ranked in the top 25. Then they've got at Eastern Washington, who was in the national championship game last year. Then they host UC Davis 2 weeks after Davis plays here in a non-conference game. And also they have Weber State on the schedule. So their schedule, the next 3-4 games, is stacked.
So you're saying it's not getting any easier?
It is not getting easier.
And it's interesting because a lot of times teams play NDSU and they get all geared up for this is a big game, even more than UND, not more than just UND. And then they kind of fall apart afterwards.
Yes.
And obviously, with that schedule coming up, they definitely can't do that. They would want. I think if you're UND, you want to win this game and use it as a springboard, not just rest on your laurels and be like, hey, we beat NDSU. You got to use this game and go forward with it.
And we saw last year with UND, they were one of the first 3 or 4 teams out of the field when Selection Sunday happened.
They need this.
They need wins, at least close wins, because we know that the committee values quality losses versus a win.
Well, depending on whatever year it is. That ebbs
Don't
and
get me
flows.
started on the committee.
History shows us. The committee, Kyle, go ahead.
History shows us nothing
History
about
shows
the
up
committee.
if the Bison play really well, they'll get the hardest side of the bracket every year.
Anyway, back to the
we don't want to
fact
get there.
that, we got plenty of times. Playoff time, we'll remember that.
UND, even if they don't win this game, they do need to keep it close in order for it to look like a quality loss. You lose to the number 1 team in the country, you lose to the number 1
team
in the country.
And I think a quality loss is a win for them, especially when you start talking about, you can't forget about the whole game of recruitment here. I know NDSU has like 16 guys on campus this week, and now that's a regular thing for NDSU to be bringing a lot of guys in constantly and always be filling up that room. But for UND, if you can hang with NDSU, you're going to get get a lot of really good guys because they're going to sell it. Just like Craig Bull used to sell it to guys. We're chomping at the bit. We're almost there. We're up and coming. And that's what UND can do if you let them stay anywhere near in this game.
All right, we have so much more of the pregame show to come. We are counting down less than 45 minutes to kick off between North Dakota State and UND. Stay with us here on the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show.
Stop. Come on. What? I've been doing my thing. No. You know what it is. He knows. I got them both though. I ain't gonna lie to you. Alright, he can take it. I heat stuff up. I be whipping in the kitchen a little bit. He's got it. Oh, that's me. I got OCD. Oh, that's definitely him. Oh, that's him. I won't text you back. I'll Snapchat you. That's it. He can backflip. I can backflip. I can do a little bit of tumbling. He tripped yesterday on our way to meetings. Oh yeah, that's me for sure. Yeah, all right, I'll give it. He's done before. Let's not put me on the spot now. I think I got it. All right, I'll give it to him. I got movies though. Him. He makes him for sure. This man be clouded all the time. Hey. Oh my God! So he got like 12K followers, so they got fair. Shout out Christian Watson, man. He just got a cut. Come on. No. Let me get these curls is something crazy. Hold on. And a fade? What? Look at the goal line today. You see the two slits. That's nice.
Best hair, right here. Christian Watson and Phoenix Sproles there. There's a couple of guys hoping to make some plays. They're having some fun.
That was very entertaining. I enjoyed that. That was fun.
I'm glad, Kyle.
Used to get asked that all the time. Like, who's the best dancer? I think everyone on the team thinks they're the best dancer.
Really, tune in all season to see who the best singer is.
Best singer is going to be a fun one. That's going to be a fun one.
There's a lot of singing to come this year.
All right, it is the first game at the Dome. Yes, it is the second home game for North Dakota State, but it's the first game at the Dome. You get to see the lights go down, the tunnel walk happen, the banner raising. There's going to be a buzz in the air because it's North Dakota here.
And we got to talk to guys this week, and they said, we flat out asked them, you got to play at Target Field, but what about this? And there was a general consensus that was really cool once. They're ready to get back to their home.
I would tend to agree. I think that atmosphere last week was really cool because it was unique. But there's something different about this dome. It's louder for sure. I think you're gonna see a couple offensive linemen for UND be laid off the ball. The banner's getting raised that we just talked about earlier. I don't know how I'm gonna feel about that. Like I said, I'm never gonna see it. I don't know if I'm gonna get emotional. I don't know, but it's definitely
maybe we need to Facebook Live this. I don't know.
I might need to. Yeah, we might need to get some makeup out here for me later. Me shining, but yeah, it's definitely a fun day here. It's gonna be a great atmosphere. I can't wait.
As you look around, is it starting to, are all of the memories coming back at all? Is this exciting?
Yeah, I had a little nostalgia just walking in the building today on a Saturday in the fall for a game.
And it even feels like fall weather for you.
Yeah, it certainly does.
Yeah, I know. It's just different. It's a different atmosphere, and if you've never been here, I think UND players will find out very quickly that this is a very special and unique place.
We talk about all of the obvious things to us that make the Dome so special, but as a player, what is it that really stands out about it? If you could put your finger on one thing that makes this place so special.
I think history, tradition, all the memories that you have here, but it's got to be. I'm a defensive lineman, so for me, was a defensive lineman. Sorry, not anymore. For me,
I wasn't going to say anything.
It was always the noise and the energy, the buzz, all the things I just talked about. You as a player, you feel that. No matter, you can't ignore it. There's just something about it, and it makes it kind of difficult sometimes to go to like Western Illinois and play a game when there's no one there. But you just love playing at home. I don't know. It's hard to put into words. It really is.
We've heard that before. We've heard guys say you're going to have to create your own atmosphere. You're going to have to create your own excitement. You don't have to create excitement when you're playing in the Fargo.
Yeah, no, you feed off the crowd and everything that people say. You hear, like I said, you hear the noise. You know that the other team has a hard time just getting in and out of the huddle. I mean, that's something that's like the 11th man that people talk, or the 12th man that people talk about. It's just different. It just really is.
Does it kind of almost, and not that this is a bad thing by any means, but does it kind of ruin other places for you? I mean, you got to play in some really cool places, and obviously NFL is just sheer number difference. But does it kind of raise your bar of expectation?
It does, and I played in a soccer stadium in the NFL, and it kind of ruined that too. It really did, because I was expecting something like either like Frisco or obviously the Fargo Dome, and it's hard to recreate that. And even
you played a lot of games on a soccer field.
I really did, and I don't know. That was rough for me. But
it's wrong football there, buddy. So as a player, when you come out here, you go through warm-ups, you see the fans that are getting out here, and you see that they're excited. You go into that locker room, coach gives his final speech. What goes through your mind?
I think you just look forward to that tunnel walk. That tunnel walk every week, it never gets old, especially. But your first one obviously is extremely unique. But you're just ready to go out. I think these guys are fired up. They're in the dome. They're playing UND. I hope there's not much that coach has to say. I hope there's not much. You have a captain's speech as well. I hope there's not much that they need to say. They should be ready to rock for this one.
It should be a electric atmosphere.
I'm ready to go. I'm excited. We've spent the last couple of years inside the studio for these home games, so it's nice to be out here. I know my blood's pumping. It's going to be your first tunnel walk as well.
I'm pretty excited for this one, I got to be honest. I know, real quick story as an aside. Easton Stick used to tell me he wanted to be the last guy out of the tunnel walk because he didn't want to trip over anything. What was your MO for the tunnel walk?
I think I was always trying to be like in the middle. Obviously, when you're a senior, you're a captain, you're in the front, but I can agree with Easton there. You definitely did not want to fall down, and it was something you thought about, especially once we switched to cleats. We were in turfs before that. We switched to cleats. They've got the carpet in there, thankfully, so we shouldn't see any trips.
That should be a fun one, and we're going to learn more about this game after we take a break. We'll come back. We'll get the guys' thoughts on the keys to this game. You're watching the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show.
This is the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show.
It is the 112th meeting between North Dakota and North Dakota State. Fieldside with Brian Sean, who will call today's game, and Lee Timmerman, who is the analyst all across the NBC Sports Network. Brian, we'll start with you. Rivalry, not rivalry, the game is back, and it's here to stay for quite a while.
And I think that will create an opportunity for it to gain the same juice that it once had in the Division II days. But when you only play twice in 15 years, you really can't get that. So I think now for North Dakota to be in the Missouri Valley in 2020 and this game to be on the schedule, I think in about 3 or 4 or 5 years, when these programs are meeting up in the regular season and then perhaps in the postseason, you'll see it come back to the way it was.
And Lee, it's a great measuring stick for North Dakota. They get to go up against FCS royalty.
They certainly do. It's where every team in the FCS wants to be. But in terms of what your first comment was, to me, the line I've been using, or the word I've been using, this to me is a rebirth. This is a rebirth of what we used to have, and now we go forward at a different level.
We're looking forward to whatever this series brings, whatever this game brings. It also is the home opener for North Dakota State. And the first time that Matt Entz gets a shot to walk down the tunnel, that'll be a special moment.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering how Matt will handle that. If he's going to have some butterflies, if he's going to be nervous, or if he's ready for this. He's been through the tunnel before, but it's not going to be the same as how it's been for him in the past. It's now his team, and it's an exciting moment, and I'm sure he's going to relish it.
And the University of North Dakota brings in a quarterback who hasn't started a game before. He gets to start here in front of 19,000.
Yeah, it's odd to be a senior but yet inexperienced, but that's exactly what UND is dealing with their quarterback situation. He's a kid he's in the program. He does have some arm talent, and early on, right after he came in last week, he threw a touchdown right off the bat. So the main thing is just how quick he's going to recognize things when those Bison bullets start to fly.
Let's get into our keys to the game for this football game between North Dakota and North Dakota State. And the first one has to deal with North Dakota State. The Bison last week had 3 fumbles. They lost 2 of them. And really, it's about NDSU, Brian, cleaning up and getting to the point where they can play a complete game where they want to do their sorts of things, eliminate the mistakes.
Yeah, and that's what North Dakota State over this decade-long run has been so good at, is their ability to not beat themselves. They don't turn the football over. They don't commit a lot of penalties. Last week, I think Matt Ent said they did too much of each one of those. So for Trey Lance, you maybe expected one of those things to happen, where a ball was going to be loose on the ground. But, you know, even Tyler Roll told us in the conversation this week that, you know, that was a couple of guys fall on Ty Brooks' fumble. It was the guy blocking him and the guy that was carrying the football. So they're things we have to clean up here this week in game number 2.
But T-Roll also said, give us a grade on last week, and he goes, A minus. So that's not too bad, despite the mistakes.
It's not too bad. One of the things the Bison defense will have to focus on is Noah Wanzik. It's key number 2, and the Bison simply have to know where Noah Wanzik is. Last week, 9 catches, 86 yards, and a touchdown. The kid from Jamestown can catch it. He can move with it as well.
The Fighting Hawks are very comfortable with just throwing it downfield and seeing if he can win what coaches call the 50-50 balls. Expect that quite a bit today, I think, out of these UND receiver core. Not just Wanzik, but Toivonen as well, and Mog. Those 3 kids can go get the football, and really, I think for UND to have any success today, that is almost a must. That must happen for UND.
Yeah, all 3 of those guys, 6'4", 200 pounds plus. So they got really good size in the receiving core. Not burners, but they have good hands, run good routes.
Defensively, UND wants to stop NDSU's run. They also want to get after the quarterback, and the guy I want to single out is defensive end Mason Bennett, who had 9 sacks in 2018, a sack and a half last week. The Bison need to know where Mason Bennett is defensively.
Yeah, and in this 3-4 scheme, he's pretty explosive off the line of scrimmage, and a guy that has a tendency to get in the backfield and make some plays. Interestingly enough, he was a guy that North Dakota State did recruit out of Winnipeg as well when his recruiting period was going on, but he wanted to play in North Dakota a little bit closer to home, which is for him Winnipeg. There are 4 Canadians on this roster. He is one of them. He's really turned himself into a fine football player.
Yeah, Coach Schmidt talked about Mason as the one guy that we don't have to scheme for to be able to get to the quarterback. He has one-on-one ability, and Schmidt also said that, you mentioned Winnipeg, he thinks he's going to be a high-end draft pick in the CFL draft in the near future as well, so he has talent.
As much as we said, guys, that this is a measuring stick for North Dakota, I think North Dakota State wants to prove some things as well. Of course, you look at the line and you look at things on paper, and the gap maybe has widened a little bit. North Dakota State, just as much as North Dakota wants to prove they belong, North Dakota State wants to prove they're still the Kings.
Yeah, and I don't think either program got a great litmus test from their openers. When you're playing a non-scholarship program from the Pioneer League, you can look pretty good and do a lot of things really well just because your opponent physically, talent-wise, is inferior to what you have. So this, to me, is a better test for both programs to see where they're at. And I still think North Dakota State does have something to prove. This is the first home game for a lot of these kids that are making starts. I think it's going to be exciting for them. And I think the biggest thing for them is they just want to make sure they get off to a good start.
And we'll see the next step in Trey Lance. We'll see if he can make it today, because he is not going to have all day to stand back there and throw the ball today. UND will do a lot of things to try to move Lance's eyes and put him to the test a little bit, which we obviously did not see last week in Minneapolis.
Real quickly on 2 teammates in high school that are going up against each other that in Fargo this really resonates with. James Johannesson went to the University of Minnesota out of Fargo South, transferred to the University of North Dakota. Ty Brooks was always kind of his second guy, the backup, so to speak. He didn't get all the glory, all the yards. He's now at North Dakota State getting some of that glory and the yards. The game within the game should be fun to watch.
It is fun because those two are best friends off the field. They talk all the time. They've been best friends since high school. You never know it because James and Ty are so different. Ty is a motor mouth. James a little quieter, but they're still really good buds. And I know a lot of the coaching staff and former teammates from Fargo South are going to be here and watching this game as well, including their former coach, Troy Mattern, who I know is excited to see them both on the field today.
It's really cool because it matters not just to them, but to the state as well.
It certainly does, and this is the thing. And again, I think it's the rebirth, it's the beginning, because it's going to happen every year after today.
We'll be back. We will talk with the Bison head coach, Matt Entz, when we return inside the Fargo Dome, where we are 25 minutes from kickoff. Just over 20 minutes until game time, and it is time now for Herdline News. And if you think there's a lot of buzz about Trey Lance, not just at NDSU but across the country, well, you're right. The Marshall, Minnesota native became the first ever NDSU freshman quarterback to start a season opener and accounted for 301 yards and 6 touchdowns in the 57-10 win over Butler last week at Target Field. Lance was named the Missouri Valley Football Conference Offensive Player of the Week and the Conference Newcomer of the Week. But those aren't the only numbers. We've talked about it. Those aren't the only honors either. Talked about it earlier in the show. ESPN has put the Bison quarterback on its Heisman Trophy watch list. The Bison rolled up 388 yards and 605 yards total to the offense in their 22nd consecutive win. It's the longest active winning streak in the FCS. Today's game is the 112th meeting between North Dakota State and North Dakota. The series dates all the way back to 1894. North Dakota held the all-time series lead. They certainly do. But the Bison won the last meeting 34-9 here in 2015. In 2015, Trey Lance was just 15 years old, a freshman in high school. UND, though, is 4-2 all-time in the Fargo Dome. None of the current players have played against each other on either side, but you have to believe this week they've heard all about the storied rivalry. Moments ago, I had the chance to catch up with the Bison head coach, Matt Entz, and ask him about trying to get his kids to focus in, not on the outside noise, but just on UND. Matt, there's so many things going on, the UND game, first game in the Fargo Dome. Have you had to talk to the kids at all this week about just keeping the focus on the field?
We have. We talked about it on Monday, just making sure that we went through this week as just any other normal week, and our preparation needed to be consistent. Those are the things that have helped us win a number of games over the course of my time here at NDSU, so we weren't going to vary much from our original plan.
The old adage that you improve the most in a season from week 1 to week 2. What have you seen in practice this week that shows you that some of that is happening?
Well, I think we continue to improve. I hope that's not necessarily the case. I hope we see leaps and bounds of improvement throughout the entire season. But definitely I think there's improvement. We're getting healthier. We had some people get banged up here and there during fall camp. And so I hope to see a lot of those guys back and able to execute.
When you look on tape at North Dakota, what concerns you?
Well, the new offensive coordinator concerns me. They had a game where they didn't really have to show much offensively, probably showed only a fragment of what they're capable of. So we're going to have to do a great job defensively to adjust and make some sideline changes as we need to. And then on the defensive side, they're a high-pressure, big movement team, and being able that we can handle all that up front with our offensive line and make good decisions at the quarterback spot.
I asked you about this last week. Your first game as a Bison. Congrats on the head coach, getting your first win as a head coach. This week it's a little bit different. You come out of this tunnel, you'll come down this very hallway into a 19,000 very loud Bison fans. Emotions this week?
Well, I probably didn't have any until you just brought it up. So I've been trying to keep it on the back burner a little bit, make sure that the game remains my focus as well. But I've told people once, and I'll tell them again and again, it's an unbelievable blessing to be the head football coach at NDSU, and I'm excited to get our guys out there, and I know they're excited to play.
Things just getting set, the Gold Star Marching Band on the field. We've got more to bring you in the next 18 minutes before kickoff. The banner raising from last year's championship will happen live right here. And also the tunnel walk, the first one for Matt Entz. Should be special times as North Dakota and North Dakota State get set. We're 18 minutes from kickoff and back up to the booth when we come back.
Welcome back to the Fargo Dome. The Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show continues. Brian Shawn, Kyle Emanuel, and Lee Timmerman with you. About 15 minutes away from kicking off the 112th meeting all-time between North Dakota and North Dakota State as we take a look at our Bobcats heavy lifting reports. And Kyle Emanuel, this is a guy that started off on the offensive side of the ball out of De La Salle High School in Minneapolis. and he's turned into one heck of a defensive
Yeah,
back.
he was one of those guys, Brian, last week, and I talked about it at length, but he stood out to me. And I really think UND is going to kind of have a similar game plan as Butler and trying to get the ball out quick. I think NDSU might have an advantage there in the trenches, so I think he's a guy that's going to show up. If they make those quick throws, can he make plays on them? And again, like I saw him do last week, can he come up and make some plays in the run game? I said it a lot too. Corners don't always like to come up and tackle, especially not in the NFL. But this guy looks like a willing tackler, and I look for him to have another big game. I went offense last week with the tight ends. I had to go defense this week, and I think Marquise Bridges is going to have a good game today.
Well, as a general rule of thumb with the Tampa 2 defense, your corners have to be willing to tackle. And when you talk about Marquise last week, Kyle, one of the things I liked is when you watch his transition from being a defender backpedaling to set down, get those hips going back toward the ball, and that's really kind of an indicator of whether a guy has it or doesn't that far away from the ball, right?
Right, absolutely. I mean, when you look at defense, especially a defensive back, half the time you're moving backwards. So how quickly can you change direction? He was able to do that really well last week, and his ability to be next to the receivers when the ball was thrown. I thought there was a couple times there where Butler had an opportunity to complete some balls, and out of nowhere, number 9 shows up and makes a play. Not just him. I thought that whole secondary played really well. That's going to be something. If NDSU can stop the run, which is something I know personally that they talk about a lot. If they can do that and they force UND to throw the ball today, look for number 9 and maybe even James Hendricks, who I thought also had a really good game last week, to show up.
And this is a North Dakota offense that is not afraid to take some shots down the field. They have 3 receivers, all standing 6'4" and 200 pounds. As a defensive back, ball skill is important in a game like this one. They're willing to take some shots with some big guys.
Yeah, I think they're going to throw the ball up, and a lot of times they'll just become 50-50 balls, right? And as a defender, you try not to get a pass interference. You're trying to make a play. But like you said, Brian, I think they showed it last game. They're showing a trick play in the first game against Drake, which I thought was interesting. I think they're going to take a lot of shots, and why not? I think, like I said, in the trenches, in offensive, defensive line, NDSU is going to have an advantage, in my opinion. So why not take some of these deep shots, take the top off the defense, as they like to say, a couple RPOs, right, Lee?
Yep.
And just see what they can do to kind of mix things up against this NDSU defense.
There's a particular situation if the Bison can get it to look for today. Home, number 9, he's one of the corners for UND. He didn't play last week. He's dealing a little bit with a hip. If they can get Christian Watson specifically in the boundary, short side of the field, one-on-one with Home, that is what Trey Lance is supposed to be looking for, and that's something that the Bison coaches feel they have a big advantage if they can find that particular instance today. So kind of look for that as the game plays out.
The last time these two teams played, you have to go back to 2015. North Dakota had 61 yards of total offense in that game, and they continued to beat their head against the wall with 2 tight ends and a fullback trying to run the football. They could not move the line of scrimmage. They've really opened up the offense. And in a game like this, Kyle, how much do you show if you're North Dakota? I mean, do you let it all hang out in game 2?
I say why not? I mean, this is a big game, and I said it earlier in the show that this is kind of like their Super Bowl. Now, I know their schedule is daunting, to say the least, coming up, and they can't do everything there, but why not go out there and try and win this game for the state of North Dakota?
And getting set for the countdown behind us as they get set to come out of the locker room for the first time here in 2019. Kyle, what goes through your mind as you're getting set to walk out those doors of the locker room and take the field here at Gate City Bank?
Brian, I'm ready to watch it from this side. I think that's going to be awesome because, as a player, you're kind of just sitting there behind the doors. It's almost like a gladiator type feeling because you don't really know what's going on. You can hear it. You're like, what's going on? And it's just building. It's just building. It's building. Brian Schatz used to famously just be kind of screaming and grunting kind of weirdly. But it's a fun time. It's an intense time. And it was great as a player. Awesome. And now I'm looking forward to seeing it from this side.
How did you decide who got to be right next to the coaches when they came out? Who got to go first?
Well, usually we did a seniority, captains, seniors, that type of thing. But, there'd always be someone that would kind of weasel the way up towards the front. But the main thing here, especially, is you don't want to trip.
And there is a look at the new banner that is going up to celebrate the 2018 National Championship, the 7th FCS title for North Dakota State. That is the most in the history of the FCS/1AA. And to think that all 7 of those have come in the last 8 years is still just a remarkable accomplishment for this program.
Yeah, that's one of those things, and people ask you about your time at NDSU, and I got to turn away and watch this, but you talk about your time at NDSU, and could you ever imagine winning 4 national championships? And the answer is no. And then for that success to continue, this is awesome. This is really cool. The 2018 national champions, congrats to that team.
15 national championships in this program's history. I think you can count on on one hand, how many losing seasons this program has had since it began. And that just goes to show that ever since its beginning, there has been a certain standard here. And I think you learned that probably right away coming in, that this isn't just like everywhere else.
Yeah.
You're expected to come in here and accomplish some things.
Absolutely. There's a tradition around this program, and that was one of the things that I loved about it. It was one of the reasons that I came to NDSU, is because of how much the program meant to this community, the tradition, the guys before, and how much guys, the current players, and they still do it today, how they play for the guys that come before them. And it's something, like you said, Brian, you learn early on, and that tradition, that culture, that's something that the old guys, they make sure that the young guys keep going no matter what.
I saw it as a kid growing up outside of Sioux Falls. NDSU used to come down. I was a fan of Augie. My brother played there, and his teams got absolutely stomped every year that they played the Bison. That was in the 80s. You see the national championship numbers up there. So this is a program that has been very good for a very long time, and I know that you guys as players, when you'd say you play for the guy before you, well, you got guys right now behind you that are going to come out in this field playing with some of the things you accomplished in mind, and that's how you pay it forward. I think it's cool.
Absolutely. I mean, especially when you're playing a team like UND, and there was a lot of talk about rivalry, and to me, the reason it's somewhat of a rivalry at least is because of the guys that came before us in the 80s and 90s. They thought it was a rivalry back then, and those are the guys you're playing for. You want to uphold that tradition, and you want to get a win against the former Sioux and Fighting Hawks.
Well, we're getting set here for the Bison to take the field here at the Fargo Dome for the first time in 2019. It's always one of the best atmospheres you could find in college football. When you pack 19,000 people in this place, man, it can get loud in a hurry. I don't care how many times you've seen it, it's still one of the coolest entrances anywhere in the nation.
The goosebumps
We're
just
back,
came back
with North Dakota and North Dakota State after this.
Less than 2 minutes on our Coors Light countdown clock. Let's get the final thoughts of our guys ahead of North Dakota State and North Dakota.
Well, I think my final thought going into this game is to see how North Dakota's quarterback, Andrew Zimmerman, does in his first ever collegiate start. He's a fifth-year senior. He's been around the block. He's played in some games. But get to your first ever start in this building, in this environment, against North Dakota State will be a challenge.
Well, for me, it's the position groups I think are the best for each team. NDSU, offensive line. They like to grind. They like to pound. For UND, I think it's the wide receivers. So it's a lot more down the field, a lot more hope you make a play. And when those are the two strengths, I think the grinders generally prevail.
Yeah, for me, guys, North Dakota last week ran 2 trick plays against Drake. One was a reverse pass. That, plus they closed practice this week. I think we're going to see something funny from the Fighting Hawks this week. We'll see if NDSU is ready.
Thanks, Ryan. I want to see how well NDSU's offensive line can dominate the trenches again. I know last week Trey Lance had a really good game, but to me, that was because of how well NDSU was able to run the ball. The running backs were getting 3-4 yards downfield before they even had to make a decision on a cut. Can they do that again? And if they do, I think Trey will have another big game, and the NDSU offense will have a great day.
Okay, Beth. We heard the Boo Birds with UND coming out here.
Oh my goodness, you know what, we've talked plenty in this about how it's not really a rivalry game anymore. It just felt like a rivalry game as UND took the field.
Yeah, it certainly did. I think this one is going to be maybe not as close as the UND folks would hope it would be, but it's going to certainly be a fun
every bit as fun. This is going to be a great game. This is a great way to kick off the season inside the Fargo Dome, and I can't wait to hear what the guys have in store for us.
All right, that'll do it for the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show. The game is next. Thanks for watching.